Hey there, we're Shannon and Jerry Arner, your hosts of the Arner Adventures podcast.
We're a minimalist couple driven by intentional living and adventure.
Burned out from the 24/7 grind of running our business, we traded the hustle and the bustle for something more meaningful.
We parted ways with most of our belongings and moved to the coast.
Listen along as we chat about life's challenges, share inspiring stories of those who have taken big leaps to live a life outside of the norm,
and help you live with more intention and less physical and mental clutter.
Each episode is a step toward doing and being just a little bit better for ourselves and the world around us.
Life's an adventure after all. Join us for the ride.
It's the Arner Adventures podcast.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shannon. Jerry is off this week. He's a little under the weather, so, we're pressing on. I am back for episode 153 of the Arner Adventures podcast. So what we thought we would talk about this week, which, Jerry helped me write all of this, so it's his feelings too, but I'm going to be the one getting it out into the world, is our lessons learned from minimalism. So we're embarking now on, 7 years of our lifestyle change when we sold everything and moved to the coast. If you want to know more about that story, the link is in the show notes. And that's how we started off this podcast, was our story of why we sold everything and moved to the coast. So we thought, here we are kind of at the end of the year, reflecting on the year, reflecting on the past, and wow, how far we have come and all of the lessons that we've learned along the way. I mean, that's what life's about, right? So when we decided to move and have our whole minimalist lifestyle, there were definitely lessons along the way, that some that we thought, we're going to have to learn that as we go, some that were completely surprising. And so we're just going to reflect on that, some of the important lessons, and maybe it'll inspire you to go after a lifestyle that you want to consider, or maybe living with a little bit less so that you can have more intention with your actions and adventures and experiences. So let's go ahead and get to it. Like I said, if you want to know the full backstory of our lifestyle change, you can either go to episode 1 or I will link it down in the show notes. But the reason that minimalism really became a choice is that we were burned out. We had so much crap. It was just, our space was cluttered, our time was spread thin, and we realized all of this stuff wasn't really adding anything to our lives. And so we had this big wake-up call where, I shouldn't even say one wake-up call. It was sort of a series of little moments that made us realize something had to change. Poor physical health, mental health, a deep need to purge. I mean, I still get this way where I feel overwhelmed and I will say to Jer, hey, it's time to purge. I have to have a purging. And getting rid of that physical stuff makes me feel mentally better. It's just a weight that is lifted. So, during sort of the decision, we had a shift in values. We started really thinking about what matters to us. Anytime that something big happens in your life, whether it's good, bad, it can be loss, it can be, health scares, whatever it is. It's even like during the pandemic, it really gets you reflecting on your life and what you have experienced so far. And sometimes it can be a big enough awakening where you really start to consider, prioritizing the values in your life. Minimalism for us wasn't like we were like, oh, let's go after this minimalist lifestyle. It literally was just getting rid of the things that weighed us down. So beginning with sort of the struggles, once we sold everything, downsized, moved to the coast, and then realized after, we were doing this for a little bit, it is a minimalist lifestyle. That's what we're doing. That's what it is. So there were initial struggles. And so we'll talk about those first, those initial struggles and how we overcame them. So, of course, we're excited. It's a whole new life, everything. It's, rainbows and unicorns on the outside. And having fewer things sounds very freeing. It is freeing, but doing it was a different story. So, parting with sentimental items, we learned more things about saying goodbye to things that really don't hold a person attached to them or travels attached to them. We've talked about before how we had all of these Eiffel Towers sitting all over our house from, we need to reflect on Paris and have all of these mementos. And we realized that doesn't keep the memories of travels around. It is. So we sort of downsized and said, okay, these things don't really matter, but I might be thinking about it. Let me put it to the side. And, once you sort of decided, that thing in the box or that thing sitting in the other room doesn't really matter so much. So we were able to let go of the guilt parting with it. And so the lesson there was just now we go, we don't need to buy little tchotchkes to sit around the house when we travel. We don't need to have something sitting around to tell us that, we went to Mexico or wherever we went. There's just these wonderful memories. And now with social media and your phone is in your hand, your camera is always in your hand, you can always film or record something where you are and you can reflect back on it, which is really nice. So the lesson there was just that we don't need physical stuff to help us remember someone or some event. The second part was overcoming the struggle of feeling like we were wasting money. So, when you decide you're getting rid of stuff, I highly recommend, first of all, you try to sell it because there's a really great feeling in that, making money off of the things that you're getting rid of. But once you just realize that you're really paying for more space to hold all of your stuff. And I'm not even talking about when you're paying for storage, a storage room to hold stuff. I'm talking about like even your home. If you end up having a whole extra room for a bunch of extra crap, you're paying to heat it. You're paying to, cool it. You're paying for the space that you might not even need just to hold all of this extra stuff. So you're not really wasting money by getting rid of anything. So we had to get past that. And we started focusing on how freeing it is to let go of things that we truly didn't need or don't need. And once we stop holding on to things because of their price tags, you just start feeling lighter, which again, we could get into it deeper, but helps your mental and physical health, which when you don't have that, that's expensive anyway. So getting past that was another lesson that we learned early in the game.
Are you feeling overwhelmed by all the stuff piling up in your life? We've got something just for you. It's the Arner Ventures Declutter 365.
Declutter 365 is our easy-to-follow guide designed to help you clear out the clutter from every corner of your life. Whether it's the pile of stuff in your home, the endless digital files on your devices, or even the mental load that keeps you up at night, we've got you covered.
Every day, you tackle a simple task that helps you chip away at the clutter. And the best part? You can start anytime. There's no need to wait for the new year or a Monday. You can dive in whenever you're ready.
Over the span of a year, we'll tackle physical, mental, and digital clutter. Imagine having a more organized home, a cleaner inbox, and a calmer mind, all without feeling overwhelmed. It's all about taking small, manageable steps that add to big changes.
Join us on this journey to a simpler, more mindful life. Head over to arnerventures.com/shop.
Let's make space for what truly matters. And now let's get back to the show. The next thing was creating mental clarity through these simple routines of doing things. So once we started having where our space felt clearer, it sort of made room for the other things that we needed to deal with, whether it was our relationship, whether it was struggles that we had internally with ourselves, or, you know what? I've never really addressed this. I should probably, get therapy or, deal with the grief or whatever it is. The mental clutter started then showing itself. And you realize, so another step I need to take in this minimalist lifestyle is clearing our minds. And once we stopped overcomplicating things by, filling our days with tasks and obligations and things to keep us busy, then what happened was that mental clutter started to dissipate. So it's like we started living this more intentional life. Simple things like waking up early to have coffee or to walk down to the water or for a quick meditation, whatever it was that we were now setting in these simple routines helped us create more mental clarity. So the lesson there was really, okay, when you have less stuff and you live a minimalist life, it makes room for you to start realizing other things that are keeping clutter, which is like the mental clutter, the clutter inside of your brain. And so we really learned that. We're still learning that, prioritizing moments of stillness, space to think without the pressure of feeling like we need to do more and fill that space with just needless things. The next lesson, I don't know if it's really a lesson or something like a byproduct that came out of it, was living more intentionally. So we were never doing this before, never living intentionally. We were definitely living to work and living to feel like we were going to be more successful the more that we filled our time. And it was like we were taking pride in saying how busy we were. Oh, busy, busy, busy. We're just always so busy. And one of the biggest changes I would say that we had was focusing on what truly adds meaning to our lives. So instead of constantly striving for more possessions, more activities, more things to fill our time, more successes, more achievements, we really started asking ourselves, does this really matter? Am I going to be happy that I spent my time doing this later? And it wasn't an overnight transformation. It became clear that when we stopped chasing after the next shiny thing, we started becoming or feeling more fulfilled. It's like we finally understood that happiness did not come from accumulation of things, but instead it was with connection and experiences and more purpose, just feeling like, oh, now we can start honing into what our purpose is in living our life. And we just could not do that before because we felt like our purpose was working. The next thing I would say that was a lesson is the joy of not being tied to stuff. I never thought that we would say this. I never thought that we would say, wow, there really is a joy in not having stuff. So, we used to think that the more stuff you had meant how successful we were, or the more comfortable we're going to be, or the more happiness. But the more things that we accumulated, the more we realized that the opposite was true. The weight of all the stuff, the clutter, the maintenance of that clutter, the decision-making about what we need to do with that clutter. Oh my gosh, it was just weighing us down. There was no freedom. It was like we had spent years collecting things, believing that they were necessary to create the life that we wanted. And each time we parted with something, and it still happens today, each time we part with something, we feel lighter physically and mentally. There's just a freedom that comes along with that. And also not being tied to that never-ending cycle of buying and organizing and the maintenance. And it also, another thing that sort of comes from that is that our life is not defined by our possessions. So, let's be clear, we realize that all of this is out of the norm. And my guess is if you're listening to this, you may be a listener of the podcast, thank you, but you also may have stumbled across it, maybe because you're searching for what it means to live a minimalist life and what it means to, or what comes from it. Is it worth it? And only you can decide that. But for us, and we don't have judgment about the way other people live. We know that people judge the way that we live, and that's okay. Because at the end of the day, all that matters is that we're more at peace, knowing that we didn't have to keep up with the trends or accumulate stuff. This is going to drop the week of Thanksgiving, and I cannot tell you how happy and freeing it is to know that I'm not going to be a part of that Friday morning Black Friday shopping. How miserable that would make me. And I used to be that person. I used to be the person who would wake up at 2 and 3 a.m. and meet my aunt and my cousin, and we would go everywhere, just filling the car with stuff. And it was just, even then when it was like you were just filling some hole inside of you to feel better, you thought, it didn't make me feel better. So it is realizing that our life is not defined by the stuff. The other thing, I guess a big lesson, is learning how minimalism affects decision making. So we did not expect minimalism to impact every aspect of how we approach decisions, but it does. It turns out that minimalism doesn't just affect your physical space. We've talked about that. It also shifts the way you think, the way you make choices in every area of your life. Honestly, the more we embrace minimalism, the easier and more clear our decision making has become. There's more clarity and focus. One of the first things we noticed when we began living this lifestyle was how much easier it became to actually think and talk through decisions. So with fewer things and distractions, our minds weren't bogged down by the weight of the stuff. It was, more space to focus on the decision at hand and what truly matters. With fewer choices, there's less stress. So it might sound counterintuitive by having fewer options actually makes decision making easier. But when we had a lot of stuff, or a lot of obligations, the number of choices that we face daily, from picking out what clothes you're going to wear, choosing what to eat, even deciding on weekend plans, it's just exhausting. The sheer volume of options that we had caused stress. Again, this may not be what happens to you. This is just lessons that we learned along the way. So instead of trying to make this perfect decision all of the time, we have fewer things. So it's not a decision really anymore. It's like with fewer items in your closet, getting dressed becomes faster and less stressful. And the same for our meals. Once we learn to embrace simplicity in what we ate, what we eat still, it cuts down on decision fatigue. We embrace the freedom of just choosing without overthinking. And we've talked about this before in other episodes, and I can link this in the show notes too. We're very meticulous about making sure that we know what we're going to eat through the week. So we plan it. We plan that for our groceries. We don't have a lot of room to have a bunch of extra bulk food and all the extra stuff that may or may not get eaten and it may expire. We don't do that. We buy what we are going to eat for that week. And we put a list on the side of the fridge. And we have a template for this too. I'll link it in the show notes, that you can have your meals for the week. And when it comes time for dinner, you just pick one of the items and you already have all of the things for it because you bought it probably the weekend before or whenever, and you eat it. There's just no decision making. It's just a way of not only freeing up the mental space, but we also learned that we saved money, we became physically healthier, and of course, mentally healthier. Something that I didn't have on here, and I want to make sure that I do talk about, is a lesson that we've learned is not worrying about what other people think of our lifestyle. I have talked about this over and over again, probably with people in my life, but I think I've mentioned it on the podcast too, that, people are always really curious about our life. And the people who are just downing it to our face, I'm sure people down it behind our backs, like, how could they do that? Whatever. We're not trying to recruit people to minimalism. We're just trying to tell you about our life because it's questioned a lot. And so when people down it or they're just like so critical about it, I started learning later, why are they so strong against this? Like, what does it matter? And sometimes, well, actually someone pointed out to me that they probably wish that they could do it. They probably wish that they could be more free with maybe not the physical stuff, but maybe the obligations they have in their life. Maybe they don't have great boundaries. And, if you know me, you know that boundaries are super important. Setting and keeping boundaries. And I've learned a lot about that. Link is in the show notes for that too. But, one of the biggest things I would say, the takeaway is just not caring what other people think about your lifestyle. As long as you're not hurting anyone and you're not hurting yourself, and it's bringing you joy and simplicity and makes it where, like for us, we can have more adventures, we can experience more out of life when we don't have all of the crap, then that's all that matters. I don't really care what anybody thinks about our lifestyle. I don't. I really don't. I think that walking into it, maybe we were a little concerned about, oh, what are people going to think that, we sold all of our stuff. It's so abnormal, and we just don't care anymore. It's not even a thought, but it is a big lesson learned not to care, which is also very freeing. In the show notes, we do have a lot of resources, everything about our minimalist journey. We've done a lot of research on minimalism. There's some books on minimalism that we recommend in the show notes. I would say if you're someone who is interested in a minimalist lifestyle or even experiencing some of the benefits, You could try decluttering. Start with the decluttering. We have a free 30-day decluttering challenge in the show notes or on our website, arneradventures.com. And if you want to take a bigger step, we have our Declutter 365, where you declutter everything in a year. It's like a calendar. We have the 2025 version already ready. You just go through day by day. There's a declutter task every single day. So you could do something like that. You don't have to take the big steps that we did. You don't have to drastically sell everything and all of a sudden go living small or tiny or whatever it is, unless you want to do it. If you want to do it, take that bigger step and do that. A big lesson that I have definitely learned is how to say no. And whether that makes it where people get upset or angry or think that I'm not, a joiner, or I'm not fun or whatever. I don't care. It kind of goes back into that not caring what people think. Learning to say no is absolutely one of the most freeing things I have ever done. I will tell you that when I say no to someone and I tell them, I'm sorry, I just can't do that. I don't have the bandwidth for that. I am not in a space where I'm going to be able to do that. You don't even have to give an excuse, but if you do, and there's a lot of nice ways you can say no. I have examples in the show notes. But once you say no, and if someone gets upset or feels personally, attacked by you saying no, that should be a big red flag for you. It should be a very bright waving red flag. This isn't about you. It's about, meaning if you're talking to that person, it's about me. It's about my space. It's about protecting me and the joy in my life. And it doesn't mean I hate your idea. It's not something I want to do. I don't have time for it, so I'm not doing it. Or I don't want to do it, so I'm not doing it. But saying no is a huge lesson that I have learned in our minimalist lifestyle. It creates just tremendously amounts of reduced anxiety and mental clutter. And then also saying no to things when people want to give you something. I don't, if they know us, they know don't give us things. But if they, oh, hey, I have those extra, I don't know, we're getting on the holidays. I have those extra Christmas ornaments in there. Go ahead and take them. No, thanks. I don't need them. Why don't you donate to them to someone who would have a lot of joy in having those new ornaments or those ornaments in their life. We don't need it. Thank you, though. But saying no is just a huge lesson. And then I just want to end with, this is an ongoing process. Minimalism isn't a finish line. One of the most surprising things that we've learned in our journey is that it's never really done. Once we first started decluttering and simplifying our space, we thought there'd be this moment where you sit back and look around and say, hey, we've done it. We have arrived in minimalism town. But the truth is, minimalism is more of a process. It's an ongoing journey that constantly evolves with us and really anyone. So some things that you should know: minimalism is not about perfection. You have to reevaluate and declutter regularly. Minimalism isn't about the physical stuff only. Minimalism is about freedom, not having less. So you shouldn't look at it as just having less things. It's about creating more time and more freedom in your life. And always, 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 with a minimalist lifestyle or any lifestyle, practice gratitude. And I know that and I think I speak for Jerry too, we are so grateful for the lifestyle that we have. It is probably, I know it's not what we envisioned for ourselves when we first got married, and even years into our marriage, we certainly never said, oh, we want to have a minimalist lifestyle. That's not what happened. But it is what happened, was our minimalist lifestyle. And it came from hardship, and it came from burnout and all of those things. But I know that I am more grateful for this life than I could have ever thought I would be, saying that I'm thankful to not have so much stuff. I have a life that I love, and I love traveling, and I love experiencing life, and I love waking up every day and having intention for how I'm going to live that day. I hope that this has been helpful. It's definitely a journey. It's constant discovery, growth, simplification. And just remember, taking those small steps And embracing the freedom of living more intentionally is all that matters. When we're gone, you're never going to regret that you didn't have more stuff or more crap, or that you didn't get that deal on Black Friday. I hope that you can pick up at least one thing from this conversation. And if you are new here, please stick around. We talk about our lifestyle quite a bit. You can definitely learn more at arneradventures.com. And if you have any questions or anything that you can't find, or you're curious about our lifestyle, feel free to shoot us an email. We respond to every single message. It may not be immediately, but we definitely respond to them. If you're in the U.S., have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope that you can practice a lot of gratitude and being grateful for the life that you have and the intention of moving towards the life that you want.
If this episode resonated with you, or if you know of someone who would benefit from what we talked about, please share it with a friend.
It's a great way of supporting the podcast, and we really appreciate it.
Another way of supporting the pod is by leaving us a 5-star review or rating on the platform you are listening to us on.
And go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That also supports us. You can always find us, the show notes, and sponsors who support the podcast at arneradventures.com.
And until next time, enjoy the journey you're on. We're wishing you lots of adventures.
Bye-bye.